Once again, you're most welcome to Everything Literature, and the focus for today's class will be on Analysis of Cage Bird by Maya Angelou. Okay, so without further ado, let's get to meet Maya, such a wonderful woman. And taking a look at the background of the poet, we're going to take a look at the poem itself. This is a copy of a poem, and we're going to make an analysis of a poem, making use of what we call the T-Swift's analysis method. That is the title, the structure, the word choice, the imagery, figures of speech, and the themes. That is the thematic discourse on the poem. So let's take a look at the background of the poet, who is Maya Angelou. So born as Margaret Annie Jensen, she was an American poet, a memoirist, and a civil rights activist who lived between April 4th, 1928 until May 28th, 2014. So she died in the year 2014. She wrote 7 autobiographies, 3 collections of essays, and many collections of poetry, in addition to a long list of plays, films, television shows spanning more than 50 years. What a productive writing career she had. Okay, with the release of I Know the Cage Bird Sings, Angelou made personal details of her public life. Her works have been regarded as a defense of black culture, and she was acknowledged as a voice for black people and women. By critiquing, changing, and expanding the autobiographic genre, she made a deliberate attempt to challenge its common structure. Racism, identity, family, and travel are all themes in her writings. Among her volumes of poetry, A Brave and Sterling Truth, that was published in 1995, the complete collected poems of Maya Angelou, 1994, Wouldn't Take Nothing for My Journey Now, 1993, I Shall Not But Be Moved, 1990, Shake Her Wide Until Sing, 1983, Oh Pray My Wings Are Gonna Fit Me Well, 1975, and Just Give Me a Cool Drink for Water, Just Give Me a Cool Drink of Water for I Die, 1971. Take note of the play of words before that the word die, which was nominated. This poem was actually nominated for the Pulitzer Prize for Literature. Okay, so if we take a look at the poem itself, I'm gonna drop in the link. There is a link to the rendition of the poem itself, and you can check it out. Okay, so the poem reads thus: A free bird lives on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, dip his wings in the orange sun rays, and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a cage bird stands on the grave of dreams, his shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped, his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. This is by Maya Angelou, and that is a way where there is a stanza therein that I loved, and I had to compose a song from it. Just listen, enjoy. The cage bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but long for still, This tune is heard on the distant hill, for the cage bird sings of freedom. Just composition from me. Okay, so let's delve into the poem fully. An overview of the poem. So you need to know that this poem, entitled Cage Bird, was actually inspired by Paul Dunbar's poems titled Sympathy. So there's a way whereby writers get to get inspired by other people's write-up. It's more or less like Chinua Achebe writing Things Fall Apart as a novel just by coming across what's the title of a poem again? The Second Coming by W. Yeats. Okay, so with that being said, the major theme of both poems is actually centered around freedom. Angelou's autobiography, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, exemplifies the meaning of this poem. So we need to take a look at I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings for us to get a comprehensive understanding of this poem. That means the challenges of being black, being a woman, and being an author in the book. Okay, so she felt like a slave in America at the time, and her voice was ignored. The free bird is able to fly, walk, and view the world around it. All of them are impossible for a cage bird to do. He's only able to sing. Okay, so let's take a look at how the free bird gets to enjoy. The free bird appears to be too preoccupied to sing, as he appears to have more important things to do. He's oblivious to the fact that he has freedom. He has no idea what it is to be confined. His ignorance of oppression and servitude, on the other hand, is his strength. Perhaps the person who caged the bird will weary of his frequent songs and release him by singing a song of liberation. As a result, his voice serves as a weapon for him. Unlike the free bird who leaps on the back of the wind, floats and dips and clips the sky, the cage restricts the abilities of the cage bird. Nevertheless, he keeps his freedom of expression and uses it. The bird expresses himself through singing. He's still alive, and despite being a prisoner, he can still use his voice. His throat is free. He sings so loudly that his voice reaches the distant hill. Even though he's in the cage, there is no lock or cage that can restrict his voice and freedom of mind. So this is just like a background check to the poem, because it actually centers around two types of birds, the free bird and the cage bird. And we've centered that it's actually inspired by Paul Dunbar's poem titled Sympathy, and it's centered around freedom. Okay, so food for thought. Let's take a look at this. Who hears the song of the cage bird? Does he sing for his benefit? Does he sing to the person who put him in cage? Does he sing out of boredom, or because he loves to sing? So these are the food for thought as we'll be exploring the analysis, and just as it has been said, we'll be adopting the T-Swift analysis method. Okay, so and T-Swift stands for title, structure, word choice, figures of speech, themes. Okay, so title of the poem. The poem Cage Bird by Maya Angelou conceptualizes the state and fate of the African American society. The use of song is a reference to how slaves in the 19th century gathered at Congo Square to sing as a way of remembering their heritage. In the poem, she evokes the metaphor of two birds living two contrasting lives. One is free and gay, and another which is caged and enduring pain. Okay, so this is the background check to why it is titled Cage Bird. Okay, focus is more on the cage bird because it's actually been caged and enduring pain, and this actually conceptualizes the state and fate of the African American in the African American society back then in the 19th century or early 20th century as well. Okay, so the structure of the poem based on the stanzas and the lines. The poet positioned the stanza based on emotions, themes, and mechanical patterns. The poem has 6 stanzas and 38 lines. The first and fourth stanzas have a happy tone, and the rest are kind of moody, morose. Okay, the poet grouped stanzas with similar patterns in the following pairs: stanza 1 and 2, 7 lines; stanza 3 and 6, 8 lines; stanza 4 and 5, 4 lines. So the structure of the stanza adds musicality to the poem and creates a rhythm. The poem reads like music, and just as you can hear the song rendition the other time, it's like a song with a chorus and a bridge. Hence, Catchbird qualifies as a lyrical poem. In terms of the meter, still on the structure, Catchbird is a free verse poem with some iambic metrical pattern. Iambs are 2 syllables whereby an unstressed syllable is followed by a stressed syllable. For proper understanding of the iambic pentameter likes, you can check one of the videos, link dropped in the description box. Okay, so example iambic meter, we have free bird lips, unstressed, free, stressed, bird, unstressed, lips, stressed. So that makes it iambic, but when you hear it being rendered, it sounds like music. Okay, so our free bird lips, our free bird lips. There is also the anapest, on the back of the wind, unstressed, unstressed, stressed. Okay, now this is actually dealing with the structure, how the poem is being structured. Then the 4th line is a combination of the anapest and the iambs till the current ends. Okay, so more focus will be given on meter. Okay, rhyme as well, still focusing on the structure of the poem. The rhyming scheme in Catchbird is irregular since it doesn't follow an obvious pattern. Okay, the end rhymes include these words: cage, rage, trill, still, hill, breeze, trees, lawn, on, dreams, stream. Also, we have examples of internal rhymes such as dawn and lawn in line 25, stanza 4. Taking a look at the word choice, which is a third factor to be considered under T-Swift analysis, the poet expresses human life through meaningful word choice that elicits different emotions and tones. For instance, freedom, dawn, sings, wind, leaves, and free bird depicts happiness and enthusiasm. Okay, on the other end, the words caged bird, trill, grave, shadow, and rage imply sadness and powerlessness. Okay, so there is a deliberate choice of words by the poets or the poet persona. Okay, the poem persona and character. The poem Catchbird seems to stem from personal experience. However, the poet decides to use the pronoun he to refer to the birds. The author's choice of the second person pronoun, it's the third person pronoun he and the singular form. Thus, the third person is instead of the feminine to describe the bird's song. The persona is observing the birds and reflecting their lives to his own. Okay, so taking a look at the imagery, the speaker creates vivid imagery through descriptive words and phrases to enhance the theme and tone of the poem. The speaker sees the physical Appearance of the cage bird. It is locked in a cage. This actually appeals to a visual imagery. You picture it as something being locked up in a cage and cannot fly because his wings are clipped. You get that image? Clipped, and his feet are tied. So it stalks around. It shows the lack of freedom of the bird. Then the imagery of the free bird that lives and floats develops the theme of freedom and a joyful turn. The persona describes the surrounding and actions of the birds. Orange sun rays, fat worms, dips his wings, opens his throat, and all of this creates an imagery of freedom. This description gives the reader an imagery of the natural beauty and the actions of the birds in the setting. Now, taking a look at the figures of speech, metaphor. The hidden message in the poem is that it is not about a bird but a person. The title is a metaphor. Also, the lines, the cage bird is a metaphor. The dreams of the cage bird represent the dreams of a slave. The bird sings of things unknown, longed for still. Things unknown to the cage birds are enjoyed by the free bird. Okay, so free people seems to have everything and life to the fullest. The action of the cage bird to choose to sing is also a metaphor. Music is often beautiful and enjoyable, but a state of mind being caged is despicable. However, when he sings of freedom, perhaps someone will hear his voice and open the cage. Okay, so the metaphoric injunction of song or singing, we're gonna get to it shortly. So juxtaposition. The poem compares two birds in different situations. Slavery is contrasted to freedom. The cage bird and the free bird have different points of views. Each bird expresses diametrical opposite emotions and actions. Excuse me. The free bird is joyful and energetic. In contrast, the cage bird is sad and lethargic. So that is actually about juxtaposition, comparing to contrast situation or to contrast person or to construct persona together. Okay, more or less like an antithesis. Okay, thereabout. Then we have personification, otherwise known as anthropomorphism. Trees are given human qualities when the poet describes them as the sighing trees, because trees cannot necessarily sigh. Okay, another instance of personification is on the back of the wind. The wind is not a person, so how do we expect a wind to have a back? That's huge. The wind doesn't have a back. Humans usually carry their children on their backs. This metaphor shows how the free bird is confident and feels secure in his freedom, because there's a way whereby personification is or can be used to enhance metaphor. Okay, so repetition. Repetitive lines create rhythm, musicality, and emphasis. The third and the sixth stanzas are actually repeated in the poem. Then in enjambment, we have run-on lines. This is the use of incomplete clauses or sentences in a line. This technique is employed to a lot in the poem. Stanza 1 is a good example. Then we have the last but not the least figures of speech employed. It's not really a figure of speech, it's more of a literary technique or literary device used, which is symbolism. This poem uses symbolism by including various objects or characters that have meaning. The appearance of the cage bird is a symbol of captivity. The free bird is a symbol of freedom. So everything actually symbolizes something. The cage bird symbolizes captivity. The free bird is a symbol of freedom. The objects in the poem also have their own meanings. These include the sky, the sun rays, the winds, the natural cage, the bars, the truth, and the eel, and many more. All these symbols are emblems of the thematic preoccupation they represent. So talking about thematic preoccupation, let's delve in. So talking about the themes in Cage Bird by Maya Angelou, we have the first theme to be the power of freedom. Just as it has been said, it's inspired by Paul Durban's poem Sympathy, which centers around freedom. So the predominant theme of a poem is freedom. The first line depicts this by introducing the word free bird, and the opposite theme is slavery. The caged bird in captivity sings of freedom. The caged bird was created for freedom as a free bird. Nonetheless, it is in an unnatural situation, trapped in a cage. This actually depicts the state of slavery in the 19th centuries, because human beings that were being enslaved were actually created to be free humans, or as freedmen as well. But due to situation of colonization, slavery, and the likes, not only is the cage bird trapped, but the body has also been mutilated as well. So life hangs on freedom. It is the true essence of living. The poem revolves around freedom and lacks it. Freedom serves as a form of identity. The free bird in the poem identifies itself as the owner of the sky, whereas the cage bird lives in a confusing concern, in a state of confusion concerning its identity. Freedom allows an individual to achieve different impossible feats, as displayed by the free bird. In contrast to it, the caged bird can only wish for it. The importance of freedom in the poem is highlighted by the repetition of the word free and freedom by the poetic persona. Birds usually symbolize freedom, but the poets used caged bird to indicate that the absence of freedom means a portion of dreams and progress. So we hear the word bird itself, it's meant to be expressive. A bird is quite expressive. But cage bird, importance of song in the fight for freedom. Wow, why do we have a cage bird singing? Song is used in this poem metaphorically to refer to the call for freedom. Ironically, the poem is written with a refrain to show that the poem is a song for freedom. The poet uses the song for freedom. The poet uses the song of the caged bird to speak up for the African Americans who are facing different forms of oppression in the United States. They live in a geographical environment where every factor works against their growth and progress. The white Americans, represented by the free bird, are deaf to the cries of the African Americans, hence the caged bird will continue to sing. Historically, slaves assigned to strenuous labor in the cotton or tobacco fields usually use work song to take their minds off the rigor and stress of the work assigned to them by their white masters. Okay, so this is more or less like an alluding to how the slaves actually make use of song to inspire, we say ginger. Okay, so the song serve as a means of emotional stability for the men who have been beaten mercilessly, severely by their owners, for women who have been raped repeatedly by their white owners, or for the children who have been taken from their slaver parents and resold as slaves. Some of these songs become a source of organizing protest and expressing their anger towards the government in modern time. These songs are used to immortalize the history of African American. Remember Bob Marley? Won't you help me sing the songs of freedom? So you understand the importance of song in the fight for freedom. So that leads us to the next theme: art as means of resistance. Literature and art serves the purpose of expression as a tool for of social re-engineering. Over the years, literature has been used to express one's feeling, criticize and protest against imbalance or injustice in the society. This poem does exactly the same thing. Through the situation of the caged bird, the poet conveys the internal strength, dignity, and power of the oppressed. The caged bird furiously fights against the injustice of his physical imprisonment, but still he sings for freedom. African Americans have adopted different or various ways to protest the limitation to their freedom through literature, just like Maya has done, through speakers and oratory skills of activities like Martin Luther King Jr., through gravity, through drawings, through music in forms of rap in the likes of Tupac Shakur, Notorious B.I.G., etc. And, they've all shown that there is a kind of physical handicap, but they still enjoy the freedom of speech and maximize it fully because it goes beyond the physical confinement, even to the point of being heard on the distant hill. Distant hill means, in this instance, foreign shows or high places. So the caged bird shares the African American emotions through songs, just like Maya Angelou has done in this poem. Despair and hope. The caged bird is in a state of despair. Being tied up in the cage compromises his movement. He's hopeful that it will transform into a free bird. That is why he sings of the anticipated freedom. When you anticipate something, then you talk about it, you sing about it. That was the mindset of the caged bird. Freedom seems to be out of reach, and his tune is heard in the distant hill. So this time around, more or less like the echo goes further in anticipation of the freedom. This tells us that the bird is hopeful. One day he'll fly over to the distant hill, just like the echoes of his voice has come ahead of him. Okay. Fear and courage. While the free bird finds it easy to fly and enjoys freedom by claiming the sky, the caged bird lives in fear. However, he is courageous enough to keep singing and use the power of his throat to fight for his freedom. Then we have adversity and good fortune. Sometimes it takes hardship to find out your abilities and strength, like the caged bird. Sometimes you enjoy the good fortunes of using all your abilities, like the free bird. Check note of that again. Sometimes it takes hardship to find out your abilities and strength, like the caged bird. So the caged bird actually being in hardship, being in confinement, was able to discover his ability and strength. And for the free bird, was able to enjoy the good fortune of using all of his abilities. So the caged bird uses his voice to the fullest to help him through the hard time, but the free bird has time to enjoy himself with his free body. This can also explain the theme of power and powerlessness. Okay, so we're almost coming towards the end of the class. Let's quickly take a look at the mode and the tone of the poem. So in terms of the mode, the stanzas describing the free bird have a joyful and peaceful mode, but the caged bird brings about a melancholic and somber mode, although it's also hopeful through the song. Also, the poet describes the caged bird's anger can seldom see through his bars of rage. So this actually describes it to be of a melancholic state. Okay. Then the tone of a poem. The tone is set by the observer, who knows why the caged bird sings. It's contemplative, but also switches from a negative to positive tone when describing the different birds. So in terms of the tone, it's both negative or overall positive, because the poem is about hope, hoping for freedom, and the joy in the freedom of hope. So I get to see you in the next class. If you've really enjoyed the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and let me get to know your thoughts in the comment section. Catch you in the next class.